Hi there and welcome back to the Dukascopy studios here in Geneva. I am joined today by Dr. Frank Hollenbeck, Professor of Finance at the International University of Geneva. So welcome back, Dr. Frank. It's a pleasure to have you.
Good to be here.
So it seems that Greece's default and Grexit are both just around the corner. What do you have to say about this, Dr. Frank?
Well, the IMF has basically concluded the same thing I talked about previously, is that you don't throw good money after bad, okay? And the IMF has no intention in participating in additional loans to Greece, okay? And let's look at Greek austerity, okay, since 2010. Initially, they talked about firing 500,000 public sector employees. Then they talked about firing 150,000 public sector employees. Now what actually happened is they fired less than 50,000, and now they're talking about rehiring them. Okay. When we look at privatization, how much of the privatizations have been implemented since 2010? Almost nothing. What about pension reform or deregulation of labor laws? Almost nothing has been done. So if you consider that the previous Greek government, shuffled their feet on implementing austerity, how much shuffling of the feet will occur of the current Greek government? In my view, is that Greece should default on its EU loans, and it may or may not leave the euro. It all depends whether Greece is willing to live within its means. In other words, whether it's able to do something it hasn't done for decades.
So we are now in the third month of the ECB bond buying binge of 60 billion euros per month. So will this quantitative easing make a difference?
Well, the deflation boogeyman was never a real serious threat, okay? And there's really no theoretical justification to fear deflation, okay? But it seems that, the rule not to have the central bank finance government expenditures has gone to basically the same graveyard as the 60% debt to GDP ratio rule or the 3% deficit rule. Okay, it seems that governments are like spoiled children, is that they violate rules because they can. The current ECB's purchasing of government bonds, for me, is making a mockery of central bank independence. Okay, and what is the purpose of this quantitative easing? Is it to increase bank lending? Okay, interest rates are already almost at zero, in the sense that you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And in reality, the central bank's current monetary policy is actually being defeated by its previous monetary policy, in the sense that by inducing government bonds to be trading at negative interest rates, and by having negative deposit rates on reserves, the central bank has caused what I call a compression in yields. Okay, and we have to remember that banks basically get their money from depositors and then lend it out. In other words, they borrow short term and then they lend out long term. Okay, and this compression in yield has actually reduced bank profits. Also, we have that many large pension funds and insurance companies have been withdrawing the monies out of banks. Okay, that's also been reducing bank profits. Take, for example, Switzerland, which also has negative deposit rates. If you're a pension fund with 10 million Swiss francs, okay, you can save 25,000 Swiss francs by taking your money out of the bank, renting a vault, paying for the cash transfer and other expenses. So this is also reducing, bank profits. Also, Basel III requires banks to hold a lot of riskless assets. And these riskless assets tend to be defined as government bonds trading at negative interest rates. So that's also reducing bank profits. What the ECB is doing is very similar to what the U.S. Central Bank is doing, or the Bank of Japan. And we must remember that the end game of all fiat currency systems is either monetary reform or hyperinflation. The ECB's monetary printing will not correct the fundamental problem we have in Europe, which is that supply is misaligned with demand. Okay, a misalignment caused by the government's incessant interference with the working of a capitalist system. However, the printing will make things much worse because this printing alters both relative and absolute prices. Okay, so it'll make the adjustment even worse than it would have been had the central bank not printed in the first place.
Well, Dr. Frank, as always, it was a pleasure to have you here in the studios, so thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all that we have time for today, but further updates and interviews, do check out the Dukascopy website. Goodbye for now.